A new university that actually wants to do everything differently from what I was able and allowed to do in my profession for 40 years. We simply define this as an experiment, if you will, in the educational landscape to shake things up here and there and to show what education might look like in the future. This German UDS is very globally oriented. It has no boundaries. Digitalization knows no boundaries. And ultimately, it's also something that might feel unfamiliar to some people. I'd like to briefly explain and illustrate why this is actually the right path for the future. For anyone who's ever heard the term lifelong learning, or who has wondered how they can get a foothold in this area, how they can find their way. And that's exactly what this university is intended for. Now, of course, this German UDS comes with a lot of attributes. For example, digital first. When you hear digital first, you might think everything is digital, and maybe that's not what you want. But for now, this mainly refers to our educational offerings. Naturally, as the university's name suggests, University of Digital Science, everything here has something to do with digital topics. And of course, we also try not only to focus on these topics, but ultimately to define the way we work accordingly. And when you see that we also conduct research globally and that we think very much like a traditional university in this regard, there's something else that gets added, something that's personally very important to me. And you can see it here. It's entrepreneurship. So in the future digital world, everyone really needs to be an entrepreneur in some way. And entrepreneur, what does that mean? It's really a mindset, understanding how you can build a business model, or maybe even consider that you don't necessarily have to think about joining a company as a traditional employee, but instead you might find your own place in this very digital world without having to enter a typical employment relationship. Now the question is, how do you actually put something like this into practice? So what is the vision behind it all really? And the vision, as you can see here, is to study from anywhere. Of course, we want to make access possible for everyone. By now, we already have students from 22 countries, which already gives you a sense of the idea behind our university. We want to offer digital excellence. Digital excellence means that we want to use the digital options and opportunities we have to ultimately equip people with the skills they need, and to do so at the highest level. We have a very international community. That simply means that we make sure different cultures and different perspectives come together. And we bring all that is together, as we can see here, in research and innovation. That means research and innovation are very important concepts to me. Innovation always means, am I innovative or am I not innovative? I firmly believe that each of us has a certain capacity for innovation within us. The question is always, how do you tap into it? How do you access this capacity for innovation? And that's what we want to contribute to with the content we create and the way we want to ensure our DNA for our students. And then comes the big overarching concept. We can see it here, lifelong learning. My vision is that learning will one day be something like eating during the day, like exercising. Everything we do every day should also be education. That is my vision, and also the vision of German UDS. Now, of course, we have this problem in all areas. Every industry, whether it's automobiles, whether it's banks, it really doesn't matter. They all currently face the challenge of digital transformation. Right now, this is also being compounded by artificial intelligence, etc., but basically it affects everyone. That's what is meant by this. We have now specialized particularly in artificial intelligence. In other words, this area that is currently coming at us through many tools, etc., and also in cybersecurity, which is ultimately the logical consequence of everything moving into cloud structures and so on, is. And of course, we're also trying to address some future topics. We've called this XR, meaning extended reality, to include the entire field of virtual worlds as a component for the future society, which will be both virtual and real. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we always have this link to lifelong learning. This not only means that it's integrated into daily routines, but also that it's connected to demographic developments. We know that the current population, the young people now, Generation Alpha and Z, they will probably have to work until they're 75, or maybe even 80. years old, whatever this society will be working. So that means it's becoming more and more important not to see a degree as the end, like an MBA or MA, but rather as something that carries continuity within itself. That's a very important point. And of course, this also has to do with the fact that we, as German UDS, as you can see here, are also creating access for everyone who might not otherwise be able to access an academic education. German UDS also sees itself very much as a bridge between the academic and non-academic worlds. So, to sum up, what is the USP? Of course, academic excellence. It's important that we make a promise of performance that is ultimately kept, because only then are we truly something special. And this promise of performance is also about giving people the tools to navigate a digital world. That's why everything is fully digital. We want people to understand that entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily mean becoming an entrepreneur yourself, but rather developing and understanding how the digital world and digital business models work. We've combined all of this with a certain DNA. At German UDS, our DNA is design thinking as a foundation, then comes solving and understanding complexity. You can even learn a bit of programming. Right now, Python is kind of the favorite, but that'll change. So you don't have to worry about becoming a programmer. But it's a core DNA that we teach. And then there's also a bit of entrepreneurship, as I mentioned before. Everything is ultimately organized flexibly. We want each and every student to have the unique opportunity to find their own path and further develop their individual skills. It's a bit like in sports. So if you look at it, how does teamwork work in sports? The coach's job is really to make everyone a little bit better all the time. And that's actually a bit of my personal vision too. Make people better. And when you finish your studies, you don't just feel like you've improved. You actually are better. We have different programs, a whole lot of programs. We have master's programs, we have MBA programs, and ultimately, we also have micro degrees. The most important point, of course, is that people always say these master's programs are the foundation. So what we do in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, a brand new program we offer is quantum computing, an area that's becoming more and more important and ultimately represents a specialized field. In the MBAs, we certainly have topics that might be a bit more approachable, like digital law, digital media, and in the micro modules, which is really exciting, you can actually choose any micro module with us without having to do a master's or an MBA. So that means entry into German UDS is possible at any time, even through a micro module, which might be quite attractive because all degree programs are, of course, based on these micro modules. So what I already hinted at is research. And for me, research means that we also have to be organizationally integrated or represented within the university. What we don't have is what you know from traditional universities, where there are faculties. There are no faculties. We have research centers. That means at the moment we have 6, which more or less reflect what is currently relevant. But that could change in 1, 2, or 3 years, that we might have different areas of focus, or that some of the ones we have now might be discontinued. But it's important to first focus on certain topics. And these 6 research centers that we're looking at right now are actually the foundation of our university's work. In addition, the professors ultimately have areas of expertise that are then offered within the respective research centers. Design thinking is something, well, my co-founder is from the Hasso-Plattner Institute. That's where it originated, together with Stanford. We've now adapted it to continue it in the digital world. For us, it's standard for every student to internalize this DNA. And I believe it's also a tool that really contributes to innovation and creativity. Next is our Entrepreneurship Center or college, where, of course, we also give people a chance if they really want to. And that's a great challenge, being at a university where people from an incredible number of countries come together. Just imagine you can start a business with 6 or 7 or 2 or 3 people from different countries with different focuses and different core competencies. Of course, this leads to networks growing larger and larger, and that also becomes quite significant. A central feature of this university is the virtual campus. That's also a unique selling point that no other university in the world has yet. To represent the entire university on a virtual campus, that means I can move around on the campus. My example is always, imagine you're a student in India, South America, or North America, wherever, I won't list them all, and you want to show people where you're actually studying. And now you can go onto this campus and actually move around at or within this university. You can get in touch with me, you can get in touch with other students. All of this is AI and avatar based. That's really something that, for German UDS, from my point of view, is also an extreme competitive advantage. All companies and all partners can be integrated. So this really is a platform that ultimately works in the virtual world. We position ourselves quite clearly as a university. So between the poles of being a university, ed tech companies, and ultimately entrepreneurship, this is something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world in this form as a university. That's what makes us special. And that means, why should someone choose German UDS now? Well, simply because it's a platform concept that includes everything: education, research, learning options in all kinds of forms, whether it's in the area of an MBA, MAS, or in the field of professional education. We could found companies internationally on a digital platform, something that has never existed before. And we can be a talent hub for people all over the world and bring talents together. So what does that mean now? In the end, you really have no other choice but to work with German UDS, whether as a student, an investor, or whatever else. We are ultimately the blueprint and perhaps even the beacon for future digital education. Thank you very much, and I look forward to any kind of contact and discussion.